What's going on, Tom Sox fans? I'm Will Trout here with Joe Callahan and Tucker Myers previewing the first round of the Valley Baseball League playoffs. Joe, obviously, we're here as Tom Sox interns. Let's talk about the Tom Sox. In Game 1, we know we're going to have Trey Savage starting on the mound for the Tom Sox against the Covington Lumberjacks. Joe, what are you expecting out of the Savage and out of the Tom Sox in this first game?
Listen, I've said it all year. Everyone on this team is a straight dog, and I'm ready for these playoffs to start. Obviously, when we see the bullpen that we've had this season has been consistent all season, and we have guys that can push it from the mound. I'm expecting that to stay consistent in the playoffs, and then taking this offensive firepower that we've gotten in the month of July straight into the playoffs, and at least in the first round of Covington. If we can fight off the rain, we're going to have a good series on our hands.
Definitely. Inject it into my veins. You know what I mean? Tucker, looking at Covington and maybe looking at the rest of the teams here in this Southern Division, in these playoffs, what do you think is going to be the Tom Sox' biggest struggle in this series?
Well, I feel like Covington's also not a really great draw for the Tom Sox. I mean, Covington on a year is 4-3 against the Sox. I mean, two of those games were two of the first three Tom Sox games, and that's when they were really struggling. But since then, I mean, Covington's still pulled out a couple wins here and there, but the Tom Sox they've outscored the Lumberjacks 20-0 in their last two matchups. Cole Ketzner has been one of the better players for the Lumberjacks. He's gotten on base 19 of his 25 games, but at the same time, in the last two games, he's gone 0 for 6, and he hasn't gotten on base against the Tom Sox. So Tom Sox have gotten advantages over the Lumberjacks as of late. I mean, look at the rest of the South Division, the Waynesboro Generals. I mean, they beat Harrisonburg, and they were able to take the share of the South Division. Obviously, the Tom Sox did end up taking a tiebreak, so they did win. But Waynesboro is always going to be a tough team. You know, Joe, you and me saw it. I mean, they had a quick 3-0 lead over in Waynesboro. And then we saw like the big bats of like Jalen Vasquez heading that grand slam to keep the game close. Ultimately, Tom Sox did double the score on them and won 18-9.
Garrett Spikes, the straight dog, hitting one of his own.
Yeah. And then Harrisburg Turks, I mean, they've been a thorn in the Tom Sox side for a while. I mean, it took the Tom Sox a win at Veterans Memorial Park, the first win like between the two teams in a home-and-home series. That really pushed the Tom Sox ahead of them. But we know the Turks, they have like the type of players like Evan Smith. He's had 2 shutout games against the Sox. Those kind of players, they're going to be tough for the Tom Sox to combat.
No doubt. I mean, we've seen sort of the inconsistencies. You know, not really sure what to expect from any of these teams in the Southern Division, and I think that's also sort of part of the beauty of Valley League summer baseball. You get to see a lot of faces. You get to see a lot of different looks from teams. Specifically for the Tom Sox, I'll be looking at who's going to be behind the dish doing the catching for the Tom Sox. As we know, Satchel Norman recently selected in the MLB draft. But other than that, we're looking at Nick Erickson, we're looking at Calvin Alexander, we're looking at Julian Rojas. Rojas batting sub 200 right now, but Erickson batting 250 in 13 appearances. Calvin Alexander batting 220 with 4 home runs just in the last week. Joe, who else are you looking for to really spark this Tom Sox offense?
I'm looking at Cole Wagner. That's the player that I'm looking at. RBI King this entire season, and took 5 to actually be the leader in the Valley League this year, and his bat has just been the consistent start. He led in batting average for a little stint right there. His cousin ultimately was on the team, then left, and now it doesn't look like that was affecting him at all because he had more production, or seemingly more production, when he was alone here. But he's been such a raring bat on this team. He has 32 straight games of getting on base the entire year. He's been a consistent bat from the Tom Sox side, so I'm looking straight at him to get something rolling in that top of the lineup.
Definitely. And Tucker, maybe looking at the bullpen, we've seen the faces of Jack Billings, of John Armstrong, of Emmett Bice, of Jackson Novi all year. Who are you going to be looking for, following, past the first 4 or 5 innings? Who are you going to be looking from to really come in and lock things down?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, I think Jackson Novi, he's not the biggest name in that bullpen, but I feel like he's going to be an X-factor because he's usually going to come out there in relief for the team. And I mean, I feel like we're starting to see the pitching kind of not die down like the production-wise, but we're seeing more pitchers starting to make appearances like Shane Stossel. We saw him throw 100 pitches in Waynesboro. He had a great game though, but I mean, it still took a lot out of the team to like put him out there out of the bullpen and then just let him ride with it. And I mean, that's obviously because you want to save those arms up for playoff time, and now we're here. But yeah, Jackson Novi, I mean, when he's on the mound and he gets his rhythm going, he's been a productive player. And like I said, not the biggest name on the mound. We have other names. But I feel like if he can get going and spark something for the Tom Sox and keep the runs off the board, which he has done for the most part of the season, Tom Sox have a lot of success, and they've a lot of times turned to him in these big games.
Definitely. Jackson Novey, I think, has 12 appearances on the year, sub-2 ERA. His only work this year has come out of the bullpen, so wouldn't expect that to change coming up soon. And then I guess we'll briefly look at the North Division. Joe, who are some of the who do we think are the dangerous teams in the North?
I think the most dangerous to the Tom Sox success would be Woodstock, because they came in on a doubleheader. The first game completely swept. Then ultimately we had a little bit of a rain out, but the first 2 innings they put one run, and then it ultimately got rained out. But that's fine, because they came back and did the same exact thing and then more, where they beat us 7-0 in 7 innings. So we have yet to score a run against Woodstock. So their bullpen is matching us in the Valley League, and I'm pretty sure that they're the only ones that can really fight us in the bullpen department, and their offense was also raring against us anyway. So if I'm going to say a team from the North that's going to, stymie anything if we get that far, would have been Woodstock.
I'm definitely with you. They're, obviously first place in the North Division. They, as you mentioned, came in and really wiped the floor with the Tom Sox, but really a dangerous lineup all throughout. Tucker, anything from the North Division? Anybody in particular you're watching out for?
I mean, I think it's mainly like the River Bandits, like Joe said, but I feel at the same time, we saw the big bat of Tomas Sanchez against us. He had 2 home runs in that game, and in the last game when he won. But at the same time, one thing that does stick out to me with the River Bandits is that in both games, they had the same kind of like pitching order. So they had Christian Gordon on the mound to start, and then they had Hunter Smith in relief. Both pitchers are great, but the Tom Sox haven't seen anybody yet, so that could be a downside for the Sox. And they also had success against us, so they're definitely going to see them when they match up. But at the same time, the River Bandits might also think like, okay, the Tom Sox offense is this good, we have to put like our best foot forward to beat these guys. So, I mean, maybe they don't have enough faith in their other bullpen and the other guys in their bullpen to really come out and make an impact. But, I mean, other than that, the Christian Gordon and Hunter Smith, though, they've just been rock solid against the Sox, not giving up a run in any of those matchups.
Well, I think that also speaks to the Tom Sox depth in terms of their offensive firepower. You see guys like Logan Amos, you see guys like Garrett Spikes, you see guys like Gavin Abrams all coming off the bench or all sort of in that rotational role. Matthew Preveska, another one of those guys who rotates in the outfield. But you really have guys all up and down the board. You have contact hitters up and down the board. You have speed guys up and down the board. And you have the same power guys in terms of Cunningham, Christian Martin, and Cole Wagner that have really seen sort of the consistent top 3 spots in the batting order over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Joe, looking at the dangerous 3 C's that we see at the top of the starting lineup, like we just mentioned, Christian Martin, Carter Cunningham, Cole Wagner, what can you say about simply put, their offensive prowess, their offensive dominance since they came to Charlottesville following their stints in the College World Series?
Yeah, so Christian Martin is kind of that guy that was the contact guy, get on base for the power hitters that you see right after him. And Carter Cunningham has been the Mike Trout of this team. He's 6'5", 6'4", and blazes like he's Trey Younger. So he's the athlete that we need at that second, third spot. They've kind of flipped Cole Wagner and Carter Cunningham around, and then obviously we know the prowess of the RBI King, Cole Wagner. Whether or not he wants to be called Cookie or Cold World, I get to that in the next Tom Sox Weekly to see which one he likes better. But they've been so consistent for this team, and then to put the catcher anywhere either after them, right after, or in the middle, because we had Satchel Norman in that second spot right after Martin, and then Cunningham and Wagner was sort of the lineup that we had running in those win streaks in July. But now you have Calvin Alexander who can knock it out of the park straight like Carter Cunningham as well. So mentioning the 3 C's is just contact guy, get on base. Second guy can either knock it out or stay in, and then Cole Wagner is bringing somebody home. So they've been so consistent, and they're the definite key. And I think Cole Wagner is a little bit higher on that list just because of the amount that he's knocked them in. But right now, you see those 3 at the top of the lineup every time for a reason.
No doubt. Christian Martin batting upwards of 350. Not to mention he has 2 home runs to go with that on the year. And then I guess one other guy that we want to talk about who sneakily had a really impressive last couple of weeks is Garrett Spikes, now batting 274 to go with 2 home runs. Tucker, what are you excited to see from him in the playoffs? We know he's a charismatic guy. We know he likes to have fun on the field, especially in summer league. This being his second summer here in Charlottesville. But sort of knowing that you have someone on the team with that kind of leadership, what are you sort of expecting to see, not just from Garrett Spikes, but also from Ramon Garza, someone else who's been in that position before?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, Garrett Spikes has been here before. He was here last year. I mean, obviously it didn't work out for the Tom Sox, but he has the experience, and he's hungry for a championship still. So I mean, I think that goes a long way. And as Joe mentions, I mean, being a Georgia Bulldog, he's got that dog in him. So I mean, that kind of correlates with him. And I mean, we've seen the big bat he can bring when he needs to be. And we saw it. I mean, in the Waynesboro game, he hit the grand slam, and when that thing went off the bat, it was gone. Like everyone knew it was out of the park. And then, he had another home run here at home not too long ago, and everyone knew that one was gone as well. So I mean, he's going to bring. When the Tom Sox need a big home run and like a big moment, he's going to be that guy. I mean, we obviously got Cole Wagner, who also has the big bat. Christian Martin does. Calvin Alexander does. But Spikes, I feel like, can be just in that mix with those guys. He doesn't have like the amount of hits as the rest of them, like the batting average wise, but he still has the bat to really bring a lot of momentum for the Sox.
And he not only that, he definitely has the defensive versatility if need be. Should something happen to Wagner, should Wagner drop out of the starting first base slot, we know he can play first, we know he can play right, we know he can obviously hit in the designated hitter spot. And
also pitch too.
He can also pitch. He earned his first Tom Sox save just a couple nights ago. And then Joe, I guess briefly, if you're Ramon Garza, having won a Valley League championship, what are the first couple words you're telling your players, both knowing that the end of the summer is approaching, you're about to get back to your school and to your school baseball team, but also trying to keep the guys hungry for a Valley League title?
Well, I think it's three things. Number one is he's obviously been there before, as Tucker said, so he's trying to bring that energy that he captured in 2019 to this team today. So I think he's just going to give some advice to how to capture that from the regular season onto this season and make them still want to play throughout. I think the second thing is we need to have consistent leaders. And we mentioned the 3 C's. We mentioned the veteran Garrett Spikes. We mentioned all these players that could step up and be those guys. And we could have 9 of them on the roster to be those guys. But we need a consistent face to get the rallies going. And then it's just the morale. I mean, they've had fun all season, and you don't really want that to die down. You want it to be serious, but not too serious to the point where it's like, we're a well-oiled machine, because sometimes when you go with the Bill Belichick system in really any sport, you get to that too serious string of everyone kind of gets burned out. So staying fun, but also trying to get the success that we've seen throughout this season still play out in the playoffs.
Definitely. I think Garza's done a great job this year of keeping the guys engaged, keeping energy on the bench high. We've seen it certainly here at Willie T. Barnett Field. Guys up and down in the dugout. Obviously, the rally chickens have been more than prominent throughout this year. Even a couple fans getting in on the rally chicken wave. But I'm really excited to see what lineups Ramon Garza throws out. I'm excited to see who's going to be catching. I'm excited to see the arms that he throws out, and really sort of the strategy. What shifts from him being that really rock solid second baseman that he was for us, now in a coaching role, sort of seeing how the whether or not that maturity will come into play. But if we're done looking at the Tom Sox, if we're done looking at their matchups, I think we're ready for some predictions. Joe, I guess we'll start with the Tom Sox first round matchup against the Covington Lumberjacks. Tucker, what are we going with?
I'm going to take the Tom Sox in a sweep here. I mean, you mentioned at the top, Covington has had success against the Tom Sox. They're 4-3 on the year. But I think the Tom Sox right now are just a different team. I feel like if they get the bats going the way they have been, I mean, I don't think Covington has enough firepower. I mean, like I said, Cole Ketzner's there, and they have a couple other guys, but I don't think they have enough firepower to really keep up with the Sox, especially if they get rolling. It will be tough to travel to Covington in Game 2, but I think the Sox will get it done in the sweep.
Joe?
I think at this point right now, Covington has our number the entire season. I think we mentioned before we started today that they were 3-4 against the Covington Lumberjacks. So right now, I'm going to still pick the Tom Sox, but I don't think that it's going to be as much of a sweep. I think they're coming back to Charlottesville High School for that third game, ultimately getting it done. But, against us, at least, Covington has been a thorn in our side, and I do think that our offensive firepower, our bullpen is going to be too much in the end to, pick them for the series, but I do think that they're going to get at least one game in.
I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Tom Sox will have to come back here to Willie T. Barnett Field. I think Covington. I think Covington simply has our number, like you guys have said all year. I'm hopeful that that's not the case, but frankly, you never know what you're going to get when you're going out to Booty Davis Field. So I do think the Tom Sox will have to come back to Charlottesville High School. And then looking at the other matchup in the Southern Division, Waynesboro-Harrisonburg, obviously, two teams the Tom Sox have seen all year. Tom Sox very familiar. Tucker, what are we looking at?
I think it's going to be a 3-game series here. Waynesboro, like in their last game, in their last regular season matchup, they knocked off Harrisonburg. Harrisonburg had a chance. They had the first place in their grasp, and they just fell apart in the end of the season. They lost 3 in a row. But I think Harrisonburg will get it done. I think they have a little bit more firepower with like Seaver King, Mitchell Ferris, those kind of guys. And I think kind of just losing that first place crown, I think that's going to bother them. I think they'll knock off Waynesboro in 3.
No. No.
Okay.
Waynesboro has the coaching, the offense, the bullpen. They held first place for longer than the Turks did all season. Obviously, because you have the All-Star Games coach. I don't think that you're getting swept into. I think you're winning in 3. I think Harrisonburg's going to be a tough matchup. Oh, I thought you said 2.
I said they're winning 3.
Yeah. I do think it's going to be 3, but I don't think it's going to be that much of a fall. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised if it actually goes to 3. I would say that Waynesboro has a better shot in sweeping Harrisonburg than it is for Harrisonburg to take it to 3 games.
I think the signs that Harrisonburg is showing coming into this series are just too discouraging for me to be able to pick them. You see it in sort of summer league throughout. Players who are approaching their inning, pitchers approaching their inning limits, fielders and batters ready to go home, ready to go back to school. And if this is the sort of motivation, if this is the drive that the Turks are showing, it makes it really hard for me to pick them. And so I think Waynesboro will win in 3 games. I think Harrisonburg will be able to win at Veterans Memorial Field. But following that, I think Waynesboro is going to take a pretty easy win at home. Now, guys, looking at the North Division, teams obviously the Tom Sox less familiar with, only see them maybe once or twice a year. First round matchup, the 1-4 is the Woodstock River Bandits, and the Front Royal Cardinals. Tucker, what are we looking at?
I mean, Woodstock's the best, record-wise, is the best team in the Valley Baseball League. Surprisingly, though, I wouldn't sleep on the Cardinals. They're 3-3 on the year against River Bandits, which is, for what the Cardinals have been, they shouldn't even realistically be here if Newmarket didn't pull out of the playoffs. But they're here anyway, and they've had a little bit more success over the River Bandits than a lot of teams in the Valley Baseball League. They also have a lot of good base runners. They're first in stolen bases on the season. Outside of that, though, I do believe just the River Bandits have so much going for them. They're just a very tough team, and you got a great manager, Mike Bocock, who's won 7 titles. He's looking for another one. And at the end of the day, I think Woodstock will get the sweep over Front Royal.
Joe?
I think you just have to look at how they played against the Tom Sox to tell you. When you look at their record, you see how well success they had in the North, and then you come to the South, and they're still getting stuff done. So, I liked Front Royal. I liked what they did. I like how they're, filling that spot that Newmarket kind of made open for them. But at this point, I don't really see Woodstock going down in the first round. Not at all. I have them going very far, so I don't think that Front Royal realistically has a shot to take Woodstock out. That's how much power I think Woodstock has.
I'm definitely with both of you guys. Woodstock, as you guys mentioned, came in here and really did what they wanted to with Charlottesville. And on the flip side, Charlottesville, in their one meeting with Front Royal this year, swept the doubleheader in which Luke Wagner, the aforementioned pitcher for the Tom Sox, threw 6 innings of shutout ball, almost no hit ball. Again, I think the offensive firepower is too much for is going to be too much for Front Royal to handle. And then the 2-3 matchup now, Strasburg Express and the Percival Cannons. Tucker, where are we?
I have another 1-3 matchup. I got the Percival Cannons knocking off the Express. The Express, reigning VBL champions, but I just feel right now, they've lost their last 3 in the regular season, and the Percival Cannons are on a 6-game win streak. And that's just really tough to really slow down that type of, just that kind of momentum going into it. Percival's not too bad of a team. We've seen it in Charlottesville. Yeah, they did knock them. It was about like 5+ run win the first time around, but it was a 2-1 matchup the second time. I think Percival is not that bad of a team. I think they can knock off the Express, and I have them winning in 3.
Well, and as we've seen, they knocked off Harrisonburg in 2 straight games to knock Harrisonburg out of first place. Joe, what are we thinking?
I solemnly agree. I think that the Cannons right now have their men together, and I feel like the Express have just lost too much to make a deep playoff run. And with Percival having the league leader in strikeouts and having top 5 batters in every statistical category right now, in not even the North but in the entire league. So I think right now, again, it's too much firepower. I do think Strasburg puts up more of a fight than Front Royal is going to do against Woodstock, but I think Percival has too much firepower in this series.
I'm going to be honest, I think Percival could win this series in 2. I think, as you guys have mentioned, one of, if not the hottest team in the baseball league, and stuff like that really matters now more than any time else coming right into playoffs. And so it frankly would not surprise me at all if Percival comes into Strasburg, wins a game there, and then goes back home and is able to complete the sweep at home. So now, I guess going back to the South Division, I personally have the Tom Sox and the Harrisonburg Turks. I think the Harrisonburg Turks are going to beat the Tom Sox. I think they're going to get their things together. The Harrisonburg Turks that we've mentioned have really had the Tom Sox number all year, or it's been a very back and forth battle. And I think the Tom Sox are just going to slip on the. I think they're going to slip. I think pitching is going to become an issue. And I think Seaver King and the guys that we've seen really dominate for Harrisonburg all year are going to shine, and I think Harrisonburg is going to win in 3 games. Tucker?
I mean, I have the same matchup as you. I think Harrisonburg is tough. Covington, I think, could be a little slip up of a matchup there, but Harrisonburg is the first real head-to-head that matches up with the Tom Sox. I do have the Tom Sox winning in 3, though. I think the Tom Sox, the offense is just rolling at the right time, and they can play. They have a chance. We've seen some inconsistencies. All they have to do is just drop 1 game and then just pick up from where they left off, which is easier said than done. But I do think the Tom Sox have enough to outlast the Harrisonburg Turks.
I'm not gonna lie, Seaver King scared me. Right, this entire season he's been so consistent against Tom Sox. But it's good that we're not going to have to see him because Waynesboro is going to kick Harrisonburg out in the first round. And I do think that the Tom Sox are going to take that momentum from this first round that they're getting from Covington, also taking that last Waynesboro game and then taking it to the next level and kicking out Waynesboro in the second round, just because I think that right now we've seen the up and down that the Tom Sox have had. Losing 3, winning 3, losing 6, winning 7. Just this straight roller coaster that they've played this entire season. A little bit back and forth at the end, but right now I think we have the momentum from that 18-9 game against Waynesboro to now take it to the playoffs. We're going to win 2 of the next 3, and then stymie the Waynesboro Generals, and then take it up to the ship to try to get whoever out in the north is. The north, as we'll see right now. So
how many games are the Tom Sox winning in?
I think they're going to win in 3. I think it's going to be a very close matchup. It might be the closest matchup that we'll see in the playoffs, just because of the firepower that the Generals had and the back and forth nature that we've had in this rivalry. But I do think the Tom Sox are going to get it done in 3.
You mentioned it being the most exciting. I definitely could not agree more. I think those 2 teams, based on how competitive they've been all throughout this year, I think that could really set up to be a great 3 games. And then looking at the North, Tucker, who are you taking out of the North?
It's got to be the River Bandits. Percival, coming in hot, that's what you need. That's the kind of momentum you want to see coming in. But it's the Woodstock River Bandits. They're just good from the top down. Their bullpen is one of the top ones. They have some of the best hitters in the league. It's just tough for me to really see the River Bandits getting knocked out early. I just think they have enough to really push for the championship, and I think they're going to win it in a sweep.
I think the same thing. I think Percival might have a shot to bring it to 3, but it's going to be tough. But Woodstock has just been too consistent throughout the entire season. Again, we mentioned before that they have the best record in the Valley League, and in a second-round playoff series against a close sort of first round, I don't know if you're going to really put up a fight against that best team, and they've been so consistent. And I realistically think that Woodstock, it would be the best team in these playoffs to try to take the chip away from whoever in the South. Obviously, I have the Tom Sox going for that, but right now I think Woodstock just has too much power.
I'm definitely going to take Woodstock going to the finals again. Best record in the league, 27-15. Tough to argue with that. And there is the added pressure of being the 1 seed. There's that expectation to perform, I suppose. And so I think that this series will go to 3. I think Percival's going to get one back at home. But ultimately, ultimately it's tough for me to see Woodstock falling anytime before the championship series. And so now if we're there, personally, I am going to go with the Harrisonburg Turks to win the Valley League Championship this year. I think that I simply think that they're going to get hot at the right time. I think that they playing on the only turf field in the Valley League. I think they have a lot of potential to get hot, especially with their hitters. We've seen they have some multifaceted players, and I think that they have the right pieces to win the title.
All right.
This might be bold, but I think
That's a very bold one,
Bold
being
one.
a 3 seed coming out of the South and not having the best end to the regular season.
I'm going with it.
Huh?
I'm sticking with it.
Hot take from Will Trout.
Tucker, who do you have?
All right, so kind of chalky, 1-1, but I think they'll split the first 2 games. I think it will go to 3 between the River Bandits and the Tom Sox. The thing is, we haven't seen a lot from the Tom Sox against the River Bandits, but as I mentioned before, who else have they seen really on the mound besides Christian Gordon and Hunter Smith? And I don't believe that they're going to be the same players in every game. I think they're going to have to mix up the pitchers. And, and coming back, coming in that 3rd game, if you put Christian Gordon, you put Hunter Smith out there, those guys are going to be, kind of worn out. And I think the Tom Sox have a little bit more depth in their bullpen. That's the same, and we haven't, like I said, we haven't seen what the Tom Sox will be up against in that Woodstock River Bandit bullpen. At the end, though, I think it's going to be close. I think the Tom Sox offense has enough to pull it out in 3. So I'm going to roll with the Tom Sox.
Joe?
I want to get to Will's first. Will, I hate turf fields. I've made that known in the pregame shows. Is the turf field going to be what Harrisonburg...
I'm just saying it's
takes Woodstock out?
another factor. I'm not saying that it will be the factor. I'm saying it's a factor.
I think it's a factor for... I guess I see it, but I don't see Harrisonburg take it, because you do see that they are only playing 1 game in Harrisonburg, so they're going to have to play 2 on dirt. And we've seen a lot of examples of them playing on dirt because there's only one other team that has dirt, and they're not in the playoffs right now. So when you get that stipe, but I have the same matchup as Tucker, and I'm going to be really honest with you, it scares me. That scares me. I look at Woodstock, I see what the production has, and it scares me. We have yet to score a run. They've scored plenty. Scares me. And I really want to pick Woodstock. But like I've said, in the month of July, there is too many dogs on this team. There's too many dogs. I can't pick against them. I've been looking at them all season. I've been ready for it. I brought the energy. They have too many dogs on this team. Tom Sox in 3, taken 2022. I'm ready for it. Too many dogs.
Certainly set to be an exciting playoff series. Certainly set to be an exciting conclusion to the season. I think that's all the time we have for today. But for Tucker Myers and Joe Callahan, I'm Will Trout. You've been watching Tom Sox Daily.
Go Sox.